Show. Here's your host, Tom Sullivan.
And thanks for joining us. Here's what I have at the top of the stack. The new Congress has only been in business a few days, and the focus is already on something that usually most people don't even think about. It's one of those arcane functions of government, raising the national debt. But with all of the focus on our debt and government spending, there are a number of conservatives that are demanding that Congress hold the line and not raise that debt limit. With us now is Republican Congressman Ron Paul from the great state of Texas, also the author of the book In the Fed, and he's the new chairman of the House Subcommittee on Domestic Monetary Policy and Technology. And Congressman, you've got a brand new clean slate to start with here. Let's start with the national debt. A lot of people are very concerned about it where they never paid attention before. Is it going to be raised? And if so, what's the backlash from conservatives?
Well, it will be raised, and there will be some backlash, but there will be some token concession that says, well, we're going to raise the national debt, but we're going to hold the line from now on. I would remain skeptical. I think they'll raise the national debt. I don't think anything will get cut. So that's the way it's been run for 30-some years. The momentum is so great to finance and continue big government that nobody's going to give in and say, cut my program. So they're going to be continuously fighting. And as long as they can resort to going back and printing the money, they will. Now, states have a bigger burden because they don't have a printing press, so they will have a lot more pressure to cut back. But the federal government is sort of immune from that, except for the political pressure, which is good. But, you know, they say it's going to be catastrophic if we don't pay our bills on time. But it's going to be catastrophic if we continue to do what we're doing. And if we don't pay our bills on time, the only people who suffer are the people who are receiving, they're on the dole. They're getting stuff from us. So I don't worry about that as much. I worry more about a catastrophic event if we continue to do what we're doing.
How are you going to vote on it?
Well, I won't vote to raise the national debt. You know, even if they make some token promises, I've heard that too often in the past. So I don't vote for any of the spending, so hardly should I be responsible to raise the debt limit. And the people who have voted for all the spending, they're hypocrites if they don't vote to raise the national debt. They ran up the debt, they ran up the spending, and there's a bunch of Republicans and Democrats who have done that. So, but the new people have the toughest job. They didn't run up the deficit, and they'll have a lot of pressure on the new members not to vote to raise the national debt.
My colleague here at Fox Business, Neil Cavuto, was talking this week about that even if you don't add another dime of spending, just the interest and other things that are accruing, that the number grows by something like $4 billion a day. So it's not even holding spending flat. It sounds like you're going to have to reduce spending to keep from busting through the national debt, correct?
Yeah. And what if the interest rates go up 1%? I think it's like $140 billion a year, just automatically increase 1% interest increase, which will come. See, the government's out of control and the finances is out of control. So, you know, pretending that you're going to cut $100 billion and not even do it, it's tokenism. I mean, we need some radical changes.
But Congressman, you've impressed everybody with your matter-of-factness about things, and if I promise to you that I'm going to do certain things for you, and then I come into your office with my tail between my legs, going, well, but I've got 20 excuses here, you're not going to be real happy with me.
So you're saying the Congress is not going to do well with their excuses? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that they're making excuses that they thought, the people thought that they were making promises that they would cut $100 billion in spending.
Yeah, it won't take them very long to be very unhappy. That's why the real test is going to be those 80-some new members on how they're going to vote. And I think they're going to be talked into it. The majority will be talked into it because they're going to get some promise that they're going to cut back. But the promises have been there too long, and I think you're implying is the people are tired of promises that they don't fulfill. But you also make the very good point that some of this spending is automatic, and whether it's the interest on the debt or the people retiring into Social Security, that is not an easy problem to deal with, and we're going to have to face some really tough times.
Let me bring you back to it wasn't a promise, but it was a statement. This is back in March of 2006. There was a United States senator that said, the fact that we are here today to debate raising America's debt limit is a sign of leadership failure. It's a sign that the U.S. government cannot pay its own bills. It's a sign that we now depend on ongoing financial assistance from foreign countries to finance our government's reckless fiscal policies, and that was Senator Barack Obama back in 2006. What happened to him?
Well, the same thing that happens to so many politicians. One time we had a president with no new taxes, and he got into trouble over that. So you have a president that said, don't raise the national debt, and makes a good argument for it. And that just adds to the cynicism of the people. But I keep arguing that we're concentrating on the budget, but it's a little bit bigger problem than that. I think it's the nature of government that has to be addressed. And as long as we assume that we can take care of people cradle to grave and that we can run our military operations around the world and be the policeman, I mean, it's just impossible. And I've also argued that empires, and which I believe we have because we're in so many countries, they always come to an end not because they get defeated militarily. We didn't have to defeat the Soviets. They end for financial reasons, and I think what we're witnessing is the almost impossibility of backing off because of the political pressure not to cut anything and the automatic increases. And even if we did do a great job in the Congress, just think if there's a crisis, an ongoing crisis, and this continues, I mean, the Fed, we've 1.2 trillion, another $600 billion. That is out of control too. That's indirectly a tax, and that affects the people, and that's totally off budget, and no supervision of that. So we got to get a grip on the size and scope of government. What's the purpose of government? They're talking a lot more about the Constitution, which pleases me. But, I don't think they all have the same interpretation of the Constitution because practically everything that has been done for 50 years, from my viewpoint, was not, technically constitutional. But I don't think they're quite thinking about repealing, everything all the way back to 1965 when it comes to medical care. Nobody's talking about that. But still, the Constitution is what we have to follow. So I think that has to be ironed out as well.
You mentioned the Fed, and you have been a big critic about the fact that you want to audit them, you want to know more about them. There's been all of a sudden a lot of people are getting on your bandwagon with this idea about, wait a minute, Ben Bernanke seems to be over there by himself writing checks, artificially manipulating the mortgage market, artificially manipulating the interest rates. What do you have planned in your new role on the subcommittee to address the issues regarding the Fed?
Well, we're going to have a lot of hearings. I asked for January 26th for my first hearing, but that wasn't available yet because I don't even have my subcommittee named yet. But I know our chairman, Spencer Bacchus, is very encouraging. Matter of fact, he encouraged me to actually look into how some of the financing through the Fed actually helped foreign banks. These recent statistics showed that the foreign banks got a lot of this. And what's really going on here? The people are suffering, and we're bailing out foreign banks secretly.
But are you going to, because one of the things that's interesting is that Congress, long ago gave the Fed the power to be independent because we didn't want a lot of people in this country, did not want you members of Congress making monetary policy. So how do you keep them independent and yet at the same time have some regulatory control over them?
Well, they have to be less independent. They have to have some of their powers taken from them until we get rid of them. Of course, we're not going to get rid of them. I'm afraid if we continue to do what we're going to do, they'll destruct themselves because they'll destroy the money. But they've changed. The Congress has changed the rules. It was in '78 they gave them the mandate to make sure we have low unemployment, but look at what they've given us. So they give us unemployment. They never solved the problem of unemployment. They give us our bubbles and they give us our recession. So the Congress has authority to do whatever they want. They can abolish the Federal Reserve. They can put more restraints on them. They could limit the amount of money they can inject. They could write a lot of laws. And people say, oh, no, they have to be independent. We don't want to be political. Well, they're very political. The fact that they could bail out a foreign bank over bailing out a homeowner in this country, that's very political, and they do it in secrecy. So this idea that if Congress had more oversight, it's going to be more political. But I want to make it clear, I'm not in favor of the Congress doing what the Federal Reserve pretends they can do, and that is centrally economic plan, tell you how much money supply there should be and what the interest rate should be. No, that wouldn't be a good idea to have the Congress doing that.
Well, we're going to be watching closely. Everybody's very interested, more so now than ever before, about the Fed and about
right.
about some of the things that you've talked about in the past regarding it. So we'll be anxious to see how you deal with it. Congressman Ron Paul from Texas, thank you so much, Congressman.
Thank you, Tom.
You bet.
Still